Unfortunately, with the 9 evil sacred emperor gone, following Mu Chun, the task would be much harder. With the 9 evil sacred emperors' help, this plan could have had greater feasibility. If we're not mistaken, Senior Flame Emperor, Senior Martial Ancestor, your plan must be to have us leave the domain world? That's right. The fate of the domain world may already be sealed. If you don't leave now, you'll only be accompanying the burial, Lin Dong said. Big brother, I won't leave the martial realm. Without your guidance, I wouldn't have come this far. Lin Yin said to Lin Dong. Since you call me big brother, then as your big brother, this is my command. Not only should you leave, but you must also take Lin Jing and the others with you. Lin Dong said. If big brother doesn't leave, then leave it to second brother. I'll stay behind. Lin Yin persisted, but before he could finish, Lin Dong's cold voice pierced his ears, causing his body to tremble. If you still recognize me as your big brother, then follow my orders. Otherwise, our brotherly bond ends here. Lin Dong's fists were tightly clenched, with blood seeping through his skin due to the force. This decision was incredibly painful for Lin Dong, and severing emotional ties was something he had already done once before, with the head of the Dao sect, Xuanzu. Although Lin Dong had grown immensely since then, and was now one of the few who could stand tall in the world, he still felt inner turmoil. I won't leave either. Bing Huan's figure flashed, appearing in front of Lin Dong, her sharp gaze fixed on him, showing no sign of retreat. Even if you sever our relationship, I won't leave you. I won't leave. Another person had chosen to stay, none other than Tai Peng, the Pangu Supreme of the Boundless Fire Domain. My master is still here. I cannot leave, Tai Peng said. Then take your master with you, Xiao said. In the current Boundless Fire Domain, you are the only one I can trust. If I entrust my wife and children to you, you should know that refusing will destroy their chances of survival as well. Forgive me for being blunt, Domain Lord, but even if we manage to leave the domain world, our actions will be meaningless in the vast ocean. No one is likely to rescue us. We will only die later than others, and that's of no consequence, Tai Peng said. This is your first time standing against me, Xiao said faintly. Apologies, Domain Lord, but this time, I will not leave. You may punish me, Tai Peng said. And the rest of you? If you trust me, I can help you leave now, Xiao turned to the others and asked. I want to stay and wait for Senior Long Luzi and the others to return, Long Yu said. You should know they won't return, Xiao said. I've always heard that the Flame Emperor Senior is someone capable of creating miracles, someone whom the billions of beings in the world can trust. But now, I must admit, I'm a little disappointed, Long Yu said. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed slightly, though he couldn't help but feel a hint of self-mockery. He never imagined he'd reach a point where he felt so helpless against the impending destruction. I'll stay too, Zhang Hongshan said at that moment. Xiao Yan, since my previous life was your ancestor, I think you should respect my ancestor's choice. Xiao Yan remained silent. I won't leave either. Yin Jiang said. Destruction has not arrived yet, everything is still unknown, right? Mu Tianlong said. So, I won't leave either. Next, Zhan Shanhe and the others also chose to stay. Soon, all eyes were on Xiao Yan and Lin Dong. Clearly, their plan to preserve the flame of hope had failed. Expected, Xiao Yan sighed helplessly as he looked at everyone who had chosen to stay. In fact, he and Lin Dong had already anticipated that everyone would make this choice. They only wanted to confirm it one last time, as they had something even more drastic planned. Everyone, I ask one last time. If you don't leave now, you might not get another chance. Xiao Yan looked at them and spoke in a deep voice. To the death, we shall defend the domain world. Everyone's response was still unwavering. Whether we can survive depends on this move, Lin Dong said. The people above the domain celestial court also heard his words and began to wonder. Could it be that Xiao Yan and Lin Dong have some final trump card for survival? As everyone was puzzled by this, Xiao Yan stepped forward. He scanned the surrounding world, not looking at Long Yu and the others. Then, he waved his hand, and at the same time, Hong Che's voice echoed across the air. Everyone, reveal yourselves. This is our last gamble. Xiao Xiao said, and with a swift movement, She raced toward the distant horizon, with the others quickly following behind. They needed to find out why so many presences had suddenly appeared in the endless fire domain, and all of these people had not arrived by the usual traveling means. It was a teleportation. A few minutes later, when Xiao and Xiao arrived at the area opened up by Xiao, all the powerful individuals from the endless fire domain had gathered as well. They formed an encircling perimeter, surrounding the entire area. However, due to the overwhelming number of people being teleported here, the sea of people, dense and endless, shocked every one of the endless fire domain's experts. The individuals appearing in this area ranged from the spirit movement stage to the supreme stage. Their numbers had already surpassed the trillions in just a short time. If it weren't for the vastness of the area opened by Xiao, it would have already been overwhelmed. But even now, large groups were still being teleported here, and the entire mountain range had descended into a chaotic frenzy. The commotion was spreading. "Sister, what's going on?" Xiao asked, standing on a mountain peak, looking at the massive crowd before him, which resembled a tidal wave of ants. The experts under the banner of the endless fire domain also shared the same question. But just then, a familiar, resonant voice filled with dominance echoed across the heavens and earth, and everyone immediately understood the situation. At that moment, far in the distance, on the other side of the sky, a similar scene had unfolded, shaking all the martial realm experts. A large number of unknown individuals had been teleported into the martial realm, and then the voice rang out. "To all from the same world, we are the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor, residing in the domain Celestial Court. If you find yourselves in the endless fire domain or martial realm, please stay where you are, for we are the ones who moved you here. The only place that may be relatively safe for you now is there." Xiao, and the recently arrived Yao, Kailin, and others immediately recognized the voice's owner. Meanwhile, in the martial realm, Lin Jing, Ling Qingzhu, Lin Diao, and others smiled knowingly. It seemed that Xiao and Lin Dong were up to something. 2 months ago, the news of the coming destruction reached everyone, and unfortunately, our current situation makes it impossible to block such an attack. If we do nothing, we may only have 1 more month to live, but clearly, we cannot just sit and wait for death. At this moment, everyone teleported to the endless fire domain and martial realm fell into deep silence. They had been despondent for months due to this looming catastrophe. They were eager to hear some good news. "We have a plan, but it's uncertain whether it will work. The idea is to sacrifice around 100,000 continents in the domain world to forcibly increase the floating speed of the domain world itself. If we succeed, we might avoid this destruction, but if we fail, we will all perish, and even if we succeed, we will lose at least 100,000 continents. The 3 continents confirmed to remain are the central continents of the endless fire domain and martial realm, and the domain continent of the domain Celestial Court. You are here because of our actions. We are no saviors, but since this world has nurtured us for a century, it is time for us to do what we can to protect it. Therefore, no matter whether we face destruction or miraculously escape this catastrophe, I hope everyone is prepared." Xiao and Lin Dong's voices echoed across the heavens and earth, and the domain world fell into an unprecedented silence. Everyone was left speechless, but in this quiet, they began to reflect on their choices. Would they accept destruction, or take one final gamble? Minutes later, everyone made their decision, and the uniformity of their actions was visually striking. All of them simultaneously knelt toward the distant domain Celestial Court, and the voices of trillions upon trillions of people rose like a tsunami, shaking the heavens. "Flame Emperor Martial Ancestor, please save us. Flame Emperor Martial Ancestor, please save us. Flame Emperor Martial Ancestor." Countless wishes from tens of trillions of people spread from the boundless fire domain and martial realm, reaching the sea, crossing endless mountain ranges and continents, spanning hundreds of billions of miles across the sky, and eventually reaching the domain Celestial Court above the domain continent. At this moment, the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor became the last gods everyone could rely on. This wasn't a sudden effect driven by the desire to survive, but because everyone knew that these two had survived calamities from the lower dimensions, broken through the barriers of the dimensions, and created countless awe-inspiring feats in the great thousand worlds. They were trustworthy. In response to the countless prayers from the beings of heaven and earth, the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor gave a simple reply. From now on, leave this world to us. At this moment, somewhere in the boundless fire domain, an old man sat cross-legged in front of a waterfall at the edge of the continent, fishing. He seemed unconcerned about the earth-shattering events happening outside, for his life had lost its direction and meaning. No matter how the world was destroyed, it no longer mattered to him. He was Songheng. Lindong, all I can do for you is this much. As soon as Songheng's voice fell, two figures, who didn't know when they had appeared, sat down beside him. These two were none other than the Undying Lord and Western Battle Emperor, who had once stood alongside the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor. I hear you want to abolish the cultivation system, the Undying Lord asked Songheng. Without the cultivation system, there still remains the existence of the Great Tao. But if the domain world itself is destroyed, then there will be no Great Tao, Songheng continued fishing. You are a wise man. Why would you have such a foolish thought? The Western Battle Emperor asked. I'm not a wise man, Songheng replied indifferently. Then why have you come to the boundless fire domain at this time? The Western Battle Emperor asked again. He knew that the events unfolding in the domain world had something to do with Songheng's sudden arrival in the boundless fire domain. In fact, a week ago, when everyone had given up all hope, Zhang Hongshan, who had been brought to the boundless fire domain by Xiao Yan, had immediately recommended Songheng, the former decision-maker of the martial realm, to Xiao Yan. It was this recommendation that directly changed Xiao Yan's plan. Xiao Yan's current plan was provided by Songheng, though at a terrifying cost. Songheng calmly said, I just want to find meaning in my life. Next, according to the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor's arrangement, everyone in the domain world, whether strong or weak, male or female, young or old, complied with the order, for everyone knew this was their last fight. The Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor would make their final effort for this world, and they too had to do something, such as not causing trouble in the boundless fire domain and martial realm. 3 days later, at the domain celestial court, Lindong and Xiao Yin stood with their hands behind their backs, truly beginning to unfold their plan. At that moment, Luoli, Nine Nether, and the others watched the scene unfolding across the domain world. This spectacle could be seen throughout the entire domain world. Anyone who looked up could witness it. It was also a tremendous shock, because above the skies of the domain world, the elastic membrane had been torn open in dozens of enormous holes. On the 5th day, an unceasing series of massive earthquakes spread throughout the domain world. On the 6th day, everyone witnessed an incredible sight. Thousands of land masses, some as large as the sky itself, were uprooted from various locations across the domain world by an unknown force, ranging from hundreds of thousands to millions of miles in size. With the full efforts of 600,000 Earth Supreme experts, these continents passed through the holes in the elastic membrane, created by Xiao Yin and Lin Dong, and were thrown into the boundless darkness of the ocean with tremendous force. And in a certain place in the domain world, a servant who had been left alone on a sea area, untransferred by the power of the rules, also witnessed this plan. He simply said one sentence, "Is this your choice?" Under the red sky, there was an enormous mountain range, where millions of peaks were distributed in a peculiar manner. From a high vantage point, one could see that this was a massive heavenly seal, spanning tens of millions of miles. In this world, because of this naturally formed mountain range in the shape of a divine seal, the energy of heaven and earth here was far denser than anywhere else. This world was thus named Seal World. Seal World was a bubble world that had barely survived a destructive war. 10,000 years ago, if not for the wise decision of their king, Seal World might have already perished. Now, the newly crowned Seal King, inheriting the wisdom of that king, was determined to change Seal World. The Seal King first separated a part of the Seal World and formed a satellite-like world that now orbits the Seal World. This world became an observation station, with priority access to the central hub. This was done to identify other bubble worlds early and make timely decisions. The person in charge of observation is replaced every 1,000 years, but during this handover, an unexpected event occurred as the old observer discovered another world just as he was retiring. The Seal world immediately responded. Today, the Divine Seal mountain range is bustling as one of the 3 great spirit masters under the Seal King. The Pattern Spirit Master summoned most of the powerful beings from the Seal world. Millions of strong figures gathered at a particular location in the Divine Seal mountain range, and from a distance, the sight was nothing but a sea of dark figures. The Seal world has 6 spirit armies, and 4 of them have arrived here. On a mountain peak, the Seal King and the Pattern Spirit Master stood, gazing at the million-strong army before them. The Seal King spoke, "Forget it. Let them go. Seal King, this isn't right. One has gone to the other world without your consent. This poses a great risk for us. First, one knows our world very well, and if he interacts with the other world like this, our world's secrets may be exposed. Second, one is someone you once said you couldn't see through. We have no idea what he's planning," the Pattern Spirit Master replied. "Stop speaking in riddles, just say it clearly," the Seal King replied. "We should never have let one become an observer." The Pattern Spirit Master directly voiced his thoughts, as he understood the Seal King's meaning. "Am I wrong?" the Seal King asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "Yes, Seal King. I'm afraid you're truly wrong this time," the Pattern Spirit Master boldly replied, unafraid of angering the Central Lord. The Seal King fell silent for a moment before letting out a helpless sigh. "Perhaps. I was wrong. I hope the Seal King will be more cautious when selecting future observers. Remember, the countless beings in the Seal world are placing their hopes in you," the Pattern Spirit Master said before bringing up the next important matter. "Seal King, as I informed you earlier, about a month ago, we noticed that the membrane radiance from the other world had slightly weakened, about 1,000th of the previous intensity. What does this mean?" the Seal King asked. "There are 2 possibilities. 1. The other world is retreating in the opposite direction of what we had expected. 2. They've dispatched a large number of powerful beings, following the path between our 2 worlds, heading straight towards us. Their sheer number has caused some of the light to be obscured," the Pattern Spirit Master explained. "Truly a group of brave warriors," the Seal King sneered, "and also a group of fools. Please allow me to take appropriate action," the Pattern Spirit Master requested. "They want to come to our world, but we know nothing about them, just as they know nothing about us," the Seal King said. "Therefore, we cannot let them into our world. We must eliminate them outside," the Pattern Spirit Master replied. "Is this enough?" The Seal King gestured to the million-strong army before them, which represented 60% of the Seal world's strength. "Enough," the Pattern Spirit Master nodded. "If the other world truly charges towards us recklessly, they are nothing but fools, newborn calves. A world like that wouldn't have much strength to control the vast ocean, and we can easily wipe them out. But still, we must remain cautious. You know as well as I do, the unknowns of the outside world are the most terrifying," the Seal King said. "I have taken note of your warning, Seal King. We will return victorious," the Pattern Spirit Master said, looking ahead at the million-strong army waiting for his orders. He knew the time for the final battle had come. On the 87th day since the departure of the Central Shepherd Lord and the Domain World Army. Eastern Domain of the Domain World. High in the sky, Xiao waved his hand, and countless beams of extreme heat light rained down upon several continents below. Boom, boom, boom. When the terrifying destructive power erupted, several massive continents, each over 1,000,000 miles wide, were blasted into the sky by Xiaoyan's force. All that remained was a gigantic black hole on the sea surface, which no matter how much surrounding seawater flowed into, couldn't fill. The continents that were blasted into the sky carried immense shockwaves, constantly tumbling in the air and whipping up violent, uncontrollable winds. At this moment, in the western region of the Domain World, Lin Dong continued to lift entire continents into the air, hurling them wildly beyond the boundaries of the Domain World. This world became an observation station, with priority access to the central hub. This was done to identify other bubble worlds early and make timely decisions. The person in charge of observation is replaced every 1,000 years, but during this handover, an unexpected event occurred as the old observer discovered another world just as he was retiring. The Seal world immediately responded. Today, the Divine Seal mountain range is bustling as one of the 3 great spirit masters under the Seal King. The Pattern Spirit Master summoned most of the powerful beings from the Seal world. Millions of strong figures gathered at a particular location in the Divine Seal mountain range, and from a distance, the sight was nothing but a sea of dark figures. The Seal world has 6 spirit armies, and 4 of them have arrived here. On a mountain peak, the Seal King and the Pattern Spirit Master stood, gazing at the million-strong army before them. The Seal King spoke, "Forget it. Let them go. Seal King, this isn't right. One has gone to the other world without your consent. This poses a great risk for us. First, one knows our world very well, and if he interacts with the other world like this, our world's secrets may be exposed. Second, one is someone you once said you couldn't see through. We have no idea what he's planning," the Pattern Spirit Master replied. "Stop speaking in riddles, just say it clearly," the Seal King replied. "We should never have let one become an observer." The Pattern Spirit Master directly voiced his thoughts, as he understood the Seal King's meaning. "Am I wrong?" the Seal King asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "Yes, Seal King. I'm afraid you're truly wrong this time," the Pattern Spirit Master boldly replied, unafraid of angering the Central Lord. The Seal King fell silent for a moment before letting out a helpless sigh. "Perhaps. I was wrong. I hope the Seal King will be more cautious when selecting future observers. Remember, the countless beings in the Seal world are placing their hopes in you," the Pattern Spirit Master said before bringing up the next important matter. "Seal King, as I informed you earlier, about a month ago, we noticed that the membrane radiance from the other world had slightly weakened, about 1,000th of the previous intensity. What does this mean?" the Seal King asked. "There are 2 possibilities. 1. The other world is retreating in the opposite direction of what we had expected. 2. They've dispatched a large number of powerful beings, following the path between our 2 worlds, heading straight towards us. Their sheer number has caused some of the light to be obscured," the Pattern Spirit Master explained. "Truly a group of brave warriors," the Seal King sneered, "and also a group of fools. Please allow me to take appropriate action," the Pattern Spirit Master requested. "They want to come to our world, but we know nothing about them, just as they know nothing about us," the Seal King said. "Therefore, we cannot let them into our world. We must eliminate them outside," the Pattern Spirit Master replied. "Is this enough?" The Seal King gestured to the million-strong army before them, which represented 60% of the Seal world's strength. "Enough," the Pattern Spirit Master nodded. "If the other world truly charges towards us recklessly, they are nothing but fools, newborn calves. A world like that wouldn't have much strength to control the vast ocean, and we can easily wipe them out. But still, we must remain cautious. You know as well as I do, the unknowns of the outside world are the most terrifying," the Seal King said. "I have taken note of your warning, Seal King. We will return victorious," the Pattern Spirit Master said, looking ahead at the million-strong army waiting for his orders. He knew the time for the final battle had come. On the 87th day since the departure of the Central Shepherd Lord and the Domain World Army. Eastern Domain of the Domain World. High in the sky, Xiao waved his hand, and countless beams of extreme heat light rained down upon several continents below. Boom, boom, boom. When the terrifying destructive power erupted, several massive continents, each over 1,000,000 miles wide, were blasted into the sky by Xiaoyan's force. All that remained was a gigantic black hole on the sea surface, which no matter how much surrounding seawater flowed into, couldn't fill. The continents that were blasted into the sky carried immense shockwaves, constantly tumbling in the air and whipping up violent, uncontrollable winds. At this moment, in the western region of the Domain world, Lin Dong continued to lift entire continents into the air, hurling them wildly beyond the boundaries of the Domain world. As this thought took hold, the eerie silence was finally broken, and what followed was a wave of panic. Those who had gathered in the boundless fire domain and the martial realm erupted in chaos. Those with power ascended into the air, fleeing in every direction, while the powerless were left scrambling in desperate confusion. It's over. It's over. Everything is lost. This was the only thought in everyone's mind. But just as the chaos spread, a force, like a shockwave, suddenly poured down from the sky, landing on those causing the uproar. Everyone caught in its path was struck, their blood and energy surging violently before they collapsed unconscious. The brief outbreak of chaos quickly returned to silence. Meanwhile, the powerful warriors who had responded to the summons of Xiao Yin and Lin Dong managed to avoid the shockwave. After exchanging looks, their gazes shifted toward a certain direction within the domain world. They could guess that it was Lin Dong and Xiao Yin who had made their move. In this situation, these two rulers had chosen the most violent method of suppression. However, they could understand why. They were clearly not in a position to worry about the chaos, and they certainly didn't want this disturbance to ruin their plans. What are you standing there for? We don't have much time. Move. As the thousands of warriors stood frozen, Xiao Yan's sharp and urgent shout rang out. Upon hearing it, the warriors reluctantly tore their gazes away from the blinding light above and turned their attention to the nearest continent. Boom, boom, boom. Continent after continent was once again hurled out of the domain world, while the light in the sky grew ever brighter without showing any sign of fading. The domain world had reached its most dangerous moment. At this time, in the domain celestial court, Luo Li and the others, though not interfering with the actions of Xiao Yin and the others, believed that a destructive attack was indeed heading for the domain world. Still, they had more faith in Muchan. They were confident he would defeat the forces of the other world and bring new hope to the world on the brink of destruction. Luo Li, let's make our move as well. Senior Flame Emperor and the others are not wrong. We can only survive this catastrophe by joining forces. The immortal venerable spoke to Luo Li. Luo Li was silent for a moment. It wasn't that she was indifferent to the fate of all living beings, but she truly doubted whether this course of action would yield any results. However, after a brief pause, Luo Li made her decision. She raised her delicate hand toward the sky, and suddenly, all the warriors moving the continents felt the enormous mass of the lands they carried shrink by more than half. Luo Li had activated the central power, but this reduction in mass was merely an illusion. Only those at the central level could understand that behind the so-called rule modification, there was an exchange system. If a ruler altered the weight of an object using the rules, the reduced weight was actually transferred to other objects in the world. The rules could not alter the total mass of the bubble world, and the central hub was powerless to do so. Thus, Luo Li chose to give everyone the illusion that the weight had been reduced. In reality, the forces they exerted remained the same, but at the cost of depleting 2/3 of their cultivation. Mu Chun was battling fiercely. How could we not do anything? Luo Li said, and her words quickly spread like a command throughout the domain celestial court. Under the leadership of the immortal venerable and others, thousands of Earth Supreme experts and over 20 remaining Heavenly Supreme experts immediately joined the massive team abandoning the continent. With the addition of so many powerful beings from the domain celestial court, Xiao Yin and the others accelerated their pace in leaving the abandoned continent. Although no one knew when the destructive attack would strike, they had already made up their minds. Even if destruction came in the next second, they would still accomplish their task in that moment. The bright light erupting in the sky now resembled a blazing sun, and everyone could feel that the attack was right behind them, ready to descend at any moment. On the 89th day after Mu Chun left the domain world, Xiao Yin and the others had completed the abandonment of 100,000 continents. During these days, Xiao Yin even ventured outside the domain world. He wanted to confirm whether the domain world's position had indeed accelerated due to the reduction in weight, but he failed. In the dark vast ocean, there were no reference points to help Xiao Yin determine such matters. On the 91st day after Mu Chun left the domain world, the blazing sun in the sky had become so dazzling that it was almost blinding. At this point, the domain world had abandoned 120,000 continents. They had to quickly finish the abandonment of the remaining 30,000 continents. On the 9th day after Mu Chun left the domain world, the illusion caused by Luo Li's manipulation of the central hub started to take its toll. More and more experts collapsed from excessive depletion of their power, but they were all relocated by Xiao Yin to the Boundless Fire Domain or the Martial Realm. On the 9th day after Mu Chun left the domain world, the spiritual energy and the energy of heaven and earth within the domain world were completely exhausted. The once lush green and blue skies had turned into an endless wasteland. The oceans had also become stagnant pools of dead water due to the dilution of spiritual energy, floating with countless bodies of marine spirit beasts. While they were not dead, they were barely clinging to life. With the loss of spiritual energy, heaven and earth energy, and even spatial energy, the domain world showed unprecedented desolation. On the 95th day after Mu Chun left the domain world, Xiao Yin, in an effort to determine how much longer the attack would take to arrive, decided to go outside the domain world once again. However, this time, Xiao Yin was absent for a full day and did not return. On the 96th day after Mu Chun left the domain world finally completed the abandonment of 140,000 continents. Though they were still 1,000 continents short of their goal, aside from Lin Dong and other rulers, everyone else had collapsed from exhaustion. Even due to the energy depletion in heaven and earth, Lin Dong felt that his ability to use the rules was somehow hindered. It seemed that the very fabric of this world was on the brink of dying, with even the rule power starting to fail. Lin Dong finally stopped his actions, but at that moment, the one person everyone had been waiting for returned. However, he brought terrifying news that made everyone's eyes widen in shock. Everyone, immediately leave the domain continent and retreat to the southern and northern borders of the domain world. The person bringing this news was Xiao Yin, but as he rushed into the domain world from the vast ocean, the bright light in the sky that had once been blinding was suddenly extinguished. In that moment, a chill ran through everyone's heart. All the light had gathered outside the domain world to form something, and through the domain world's blast membrane, everyone could see it, a tiny, almost imperceptible speck of light. In the end, under the gaze of everyone, this speck of light descended onto the domain world's blast membrane, merging into it and disappearing, or rather, not disappearing, because a ripple began to spread across the blast membrane. At that moment, Lin Dong, high in the sky, and the returning Xiao Yin both watched the expanding ripples on the blast membrane and simultaneously spoke. "It's over." The ripples continued to spread as Xiao Yin and Lin Dong watched. This time, all those who still had consciousness in the world were undoubtedly feeling mixed emotions, but their gazes were filled with a determination never seen before, because they had tried their best. And when hundreds of thousands of years passed, Xiao Yin and Lin Dong no longer existed in the world. When future generations recalled the state of affairs at that time, everyone would remember that it was because of the efforts of the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor that a glimmer of hope was given to future generations, and to all people, a future was born. Beneath destruction, there will be rebirth. At the moment when the domain world faced destruction, at the far end of the vast and endless ocean, in a massive ocean domain, thousands of bubble worlds floated. This was a paradise within the ocean, unlike any other place. There were no oceanic wars here, and the thousands of bubble worlds coexisted peacefully. This was because there was no central lord in these bubble worlds. At this moment, in one of the bubble worlds within this ocean domain, an old man was slowly ascending a giant hall. Inside the hall, there was no so-called king, only a group of children. This was a world of only children. However, although they appeared to be children, their actual ages were not what they seemed. They were merely born with appearances predetermined by the nature of this world. The world was called the Sprite Child Realm. The old man was the only elder in this world. But as he walked into the giant hall, he suddenly felt something. He turned his gaze to the distant horizon, his eyes piercing through the membrane of the bubble world and looking into the ocean. "Old man, what are you looking at?" A child tugged at the old man's robe. The old man came back to his senses, smiled, and said, "It's nothing major. It's probably the world I created being destroyed. Let it be destroyed. All those mass contest battles out there are so annoying. We're not participating." The child pouted, then grabbed the old man's hand and walked into the hall. Xiao Yin remembered. He had encountered this kind of ripple assault technique before. Decades ago, after he had just established the Boundless Fire Domain, he was attacked by Imoku Tian and some powerful members of the Imoku God Clan. Although he had successfully driven them back, the Boundless Fire Domain was located at the southern edge of the Great Thousand Worlds, adjacent to the extraterritorial Evil Clan. This proximity gave an opportunity for an extraterritorial Evil Clan's Great Sacred Emperor to launch a long-range attack on the Boundless Fire Domain. The method used by the extraterritorial Evil Clan was to concentrate energy and attack the membrane at the edge of the Great Thousand World, then create large-scale shockwaves by making the membrane vibrate like a drumhead, targeting the Boundless Fire Domain. Although the attack was blocked by the Dragon Phoenix, Xiao Yin never forgot the scene. Without the Dragon Phoenix's intervention, the Boundless Fire Domain would have been severely damaged. Now, Xiao Yin never expected that the unknown world far in the distance would use the same method to attack the domain world. The energy gathered in that thin beam of light, according to the Acolyte Sanctum, was over 1,000 billion times more powerful than the full force of a heavenly supreme expert. How could this be? Lin Dong looked up at the ripples continuously spreading across the membrane in the sky and realized the terrifying nature of this attack. Because of his alliance with the Boundless Fire Domain, he was clearly aware of the attack launched by the extraterritorial Evil Clan back then. But this time, the attack was 100 billion times more terrifying than the one launched by the extraterritorial Evil Clan back then. It was the difference between a grain of sand and Mount Tai. Both of you seniors and everyone else, please relax immediately. Just as the ripples caused by the impact of the light spread quickly, a low voice suddenly echoed in the hearts of everyone in the domain world. The voice belonged to Luo Li, and as her words rang out, Xiao Yin, Lin Dong, and the other powerful beings in the world immediately relaxed their bodies. They then began to disappear one by one. When they reappeared, Xiao Yin and some of the others had already returned to the Boundless Fire Domain, while Lin Dong and the remaining individuals were directly transferred to the Martial Realm. Back in the Boundless Fire Domain in the Martial Realm, Xiao Yin and Lin Dong immediately turned their attention to the central domain continent, where the domain celestial court was located. At that moment, everyone saw the massive continent, spanning over billions of miles, floating into the sky, carrying a huge shadow with it, and charging toward the expanding ripples in the membrane above. Luo Li, at the cost of sacrificing the domain continent, intended to stop this shockwave attack. However, neither Xiao Yin nor Lin Dong believed that Luo Li would succeed, for the power this time was far beyond anyone's imagination. The vast continent, spanning billions of miles, cast a shadow that covered half of the domain world as it howled into the sky at tens of billions of miles. Yet, below, the ripples of the blast membrane expanded across billions of miles. Then, the once unshakable membrane was shattered, creating a massive hole like a skylight, beyond which was an endless expanse of darkness. Next, the continent closest to the giant hole was directly shattered, transforming into a supernova-like explosion that engulfed the entire domain world. However, beneath this fiery display were the shattered pieces of the continent. These fragments, now like meteorites, were hurled across the domain world, carrying with them the power of destruction. At this moment, everyone was utterly exhausted, with no one left with the strength to prevent this impending annihilation. Was this the end for some? Protect the remaining people of the domain world. A sudden shout echoed across the domain world. Two figures appeared from the heavens, Xiao Yin and Lin Dong. In this final moment, they had chosen to risk everything. But they were well aware that their strength was limited, so their target was only the continent fragments that might fall into the Boundless Fire Domain and Martial Realm. That was all they could protect. Xiao Yin, soaring into the sky, punched a massive continent fragment that was tens of thousands of miles wide, shattering it. Then, a surging flame swept from his body, melting and evaporating the nearby fragments. Meanwhile, above the Martial Realm, Lin Dong continuously struck down the continent fragments heading toward the realm, breaking them into dust. But in terms of speed, Lin Dong seemed to be faster than Xiao Yin, because his physical strength, on par with the Dragon Phoenix, was the strongest in the domain world. However, the domain world had already been breached, and the rule power had become unstable. Now, all they could rely on were their remaining spiritual energy and the physical strength that might soon reach its limit. At the location of the former domain Celestial Court, Luo Li and the Immortal Venerable, among others, watched grimly as the giant hole in the blast membrane rapidly expanded. Luo Li had already attempted to repair the breach in the central hub, but to no avail. So, this is the method of destruction, starting from the outermost part? Luo Li finally understood the enemy's attack strategy. Everyone had thought the attack would be a direct destructive blast into the domain world, shattering it into pieces. But what actually occurred was a vibration-type attack. Had it been a direct explosion, the domain world's fragments would scatter across the vast expanse. But with this shaking attack, after the fall of those within the domain world, the only remnants left would be broken world debris. These fragments wouldn't scatter too far, aiding the enemy world in collecting them to increase its own world mass. What a clever strategy. Yet, Luo Li and the others couldn't help but smile. The enemy had miscalculated. Over the past 10 days, with the intervention of Xiao Yin, Lin Dong, and others, most of the continents in the domain world had already been abandoned, scattered across the vast expanse. Even if the enemy world succeeded in destroying the domain world, it would only claim an empty shell with minimal continent mass. However, a closer look revealed something significant. The area where the light attack had struck was actually the front half of the domain world, while the first region destroyed by the expanding hole in the membrane was the western region of the Great Thousand World. There, a massive area spanning billions of miles had collapsed, spreading toward the boundless fire domain and martial realm. This was the result of Xiao Yin and Lin Dong's efforts over the past 2 weeks. By abandoning much of the domain world, they had subtly shifted its position in the vast expanse. Had nothing been done, the domain world would have been shattered by now. It was now an inevitable, unstoppable devastation, but a glimmer of hope remained. Bang, bang, bang. Xiao Yin and Lin Dong continued to strike, preventing the continent fragments from falling into the boundless fire domain and martial realm. This scene could only be witnessed by a few remaining powerful beings who had not yet lost consciousness, while the rest showed no signs of waking. No one cheered them on, but they fought desperately to protect the heavens and earth. Everyone knew that if they didn't act now, they would never have another chance. Xiao Yin, filled with fury, slammed a punch into a massive land fragment. A tidal wave of raging flames erupted, engulfing the fragment. But at that moment, another even larger fragment followed closely behind, and Xiao Yin, caught off guard, was sent flying by the impact. Blood began to seep from his body, something that had never happened since he reached the ruler level. Clearly, Xiao Yin had not only exhausted his fire spirit power, but also reached the limit of his physical strength. Why is this happening? Xiao Yin was hurled back to the ground, his fall causing the ground to collapse. The massive fragment, its momentum still unrelenting, descended with the destructive force that threatened the lives of countless unconscious individuals below. Lying powerless in the crater, Xiao Yin realized that, this time, he truly had no means of fighting back. That grand wish to protect the Doqi world, you haven't fulfilled it yet. But just then, a familiar voice suddenly echoed, causing Xiao Yin, lying in the crater, to pause in surprise. He then saw a flash of fire streaking across the sky, followed by an overwhelming heat. Sensing this scorching force, Xiao Yin immediately knew who had arrived. It was none other than the spirit of fire, and under its power, the descending fragment was instantly reduced to nothingness. At the same time, the body of the fire boy himself was set ablaze. Didn't you all swear never to interfere in the matters of the outside world? Looking up at the spirit of fire in the sky, Xiao Yin, now powerless, could only rasp out the words. Meanwhile, in the martial realm, Lin Dong had been fighting fiercely for over 10 minutes. Although he had successfully destroyed thousands upon thousands of land fragments, he had also exhausted his strength. Now, he was leaning against a rock, unable to summon the strength to stand. I tried. There's no regret in this, Lin Dong said with a cold smile, mocking himself as several more fragments appeared in the sky. No, you haven't tried enough. There is still more for you to do. Just as Lin Dong was about to give up, a faint voice came from ahead. When he looked up, he saw a childlike figure who had appeared without him noticing. It was the Thunder Spirit. Boom! A terrifying blaze surged through the air, and the Spirit of Fire, turning to face Xiao, said, I have already made arrangements with Thunder Spirit. Hearing this, Xiao, drained of all strength, could only furrow his brow in confusion. Master created us to protect the glass. The Spirit of Fire then took out a crystal, which was the glass they had protected for hundreds of thousands of years. Now, I'm giving it to you. As the words of the Spirit of Fire reached Xiaoyan's ears, he was once again stunned. Earlier, he had gone to the spirit domain to obtain the glass, and with his strength at that time, it would have been easy to take it. But he had ultimately given up. One reason was that the Spirit of Fire and the Thunder Spirit were willing to risk their lives to protect the glass. As long as they were alive, the glass could not be taken by anyone else. Xiao knew that obtaining the glass would cost the domain world 2 lower rulers. Another reason was that Xiao had no idea how to use the glass. Taking it would mean he gained something incredibly powerful but useless, so he had decided to temporarily abandon it and go to the domain celestial court to find a servant who might know how to use it before returning to the spirit domain to claim the glass. But in the end, the servant didn't know either, and Xiao had given up on relying on the glass, an immensely powerful item, but one he couldn't use. Now, however, this very item, which the Spirit of Fire had guarded with all its might, was being handed to him directly. I don't understand. Xiao, staring at the Spirit of Fire, hoarsely said, Master created us, and our purpose is to protect the glass. But now, we can no longer protect it on our own. The Spirit of Fire waved its hand, and a torrent of flames surged like a tidal wave, burning the dozen or so descending land fragments into nothingness. Afterward, the Spirit of Fire turned and floated to the edge of the crater where Xiao lay. What does it mean? Xiao furrowed his brows. It means that if we exist, you won't be able to get the glass. The Spirit of Fire Flame waved his hand, and a piece of glass appeared with a flash. Then, with a leap, the Spirit of Fire Flame directly appeared in front of Xiao. Stand up. We don't want to give something the Master entrusted to us to someone who can't even stand. Xiao didn't stand up. Not only was he lacking the strength to do so, but he was also more puzzled. What could he possibly do with this glass, even if he had it? Years ago, when the Do Domain world was destroyed, did you just sit there doing nothing? The Spirit of Fire Flame looked at Xiao with a slightly mocking tone. Upon hearing this, Xiao's eyes contracted. In that moment, it felt like he saw the Do Domain world floating in the lower dimension world. At that time, everything in the Do Domain world seemed to be progressing normally. All plans were continuing, yet no one expected that a catastrophe was silently spreading throughout the lower dimension world. The dimensional vortex created by the Malice Spirit soon spread to the Do Domain world. 1 second, everyone was unaware. The next, the entire Do Domain world turned to dust. Xiao still had no idea what the people in the Do Domain world felt at that time. Damn it! Can't do anything? Suddenly, Xiao's hand surged with power. Perhaps out of his unwillingness and anger, he crushed a stone beside him. Then, despite his excruciating pain, Xiao slowly stood up, each movement feeling like thousands of needles were piercing through his body. But he finally stood up. Now this looks like the Xiao I used to know. You didn't disappoint us after all. Looking at Xiao standing, the Spirit of Fire Flame smiled faintly, then took a step forward. At the same time, an overwhelming force enveloped the area, covering several billion miles of the boundless fire domain. What are you going to do? Protect this domain for us? Looking up at the Spirit of Fire in the sky, Xiao, now powerless, could only rasp out the words. Meanwhile, in the martial realm, Lin Dong had been fighting fiercely for over 10 minutes. Although he had successfully destroyed thousands upon thousands of land fragments, he had also exhausted his strength. Now, He was leaning against a rock, unable to summon the strength to stand. I tried. There's no regret in this, Lin Dong said with a cold smile, mocking himself as several more fragments appeared in the sky. No, you haven't tried enough. There is still more for you to do. Just as Lin Dong was about to give up, a faint voice came from ahead. When he looked up, he saw a childlike figure who had appeared without him noticing. It was the Thunder Spirit. Boom! A terrifying blaze surged through the air, and the Spirit of Fire, turning to face Xiao, said, I have already made arrangements with Thunder Spirit. Hearing this, Xiao, drained of all strength, could only furrow his brow in confusion. Master created us to protect the glass. The Spirit of Fire then took out a crystal, which was the glass they had protected for hundreds of thousands of years. Now, I'm giving it to you. As the words of the Spirit of Fire reached Xiao ears, he was once again stunned. Earlier, he had gone to the spirit domain to obtain the glass, and with his strength at that time, it would have been easy to take it. But he had ultimately given up. One reason was that the Spirit of Fire and the Thunder Spirit were willing to risk their lives to protect the glass. As long as they were alive, the glass could not be taken by anyone else. Xiao knew that obtaining the glass would cost the domain world 2 lower rulers. Another reason was that Xiao had no idea how to use the glass. Taking it would mean he gained something incredibly powerful but useless, so he had decided to temporarily abandon it and go to the domain celestial court to find a servant who might know how to use it before returning to the spirit domain to claim the glass. But in the end, the servant didn't know either, and Xiao had given up on relying on the glass, an immensely powerful item, but one he couldn't use. Now, however, this very item, which the Spirit of Fire had guarded with all its might, was being handed to him directly. I don't understand. Xiao, staring at the Spirit of Fire, hoarsely said, Master created us, and our purpose is to protect the glass. But now, we can no longer protect it on our own. The Spirit of Fire waved its hand, and a torrent of flames surged like a tidal wave, burning the dozen or so descending land fragments into nothingness. Afterward, the Spirit of Fire turned and floated to the edge of the crater where Xiao lay. What does it mean? Xiao furrowed his brows. It means that if we exist, you won't be able to get the glass. The Spirit of Fire Flame waved his hand, and a piece of glass appeared with a flash. Then, with a leap, the Spirit of Fire Flame directly appeared in front of Xiao. Stand up. We don't want to give something the Master entrusted to us to someone who can't even stand. Xiao didn't stand up. Not only was he lacking the strength to do so, but he was also more puzzled. What could he possibly do with this glass, even if he had it? Years ago, when the Do Domain world was destroyed, did you just sit there doing nothing? The Spirit of Fire Flame looked at Xiao with a slightly mocking tone. Upon hearing this, Xiao eyes contracted. In that moment, it felt like he saw the Do Domain world floating in the lower dimension world. At that time, everything in the Do Domain world seemed to be progressing normally. All plans were continuing, yet no one expected that a catastrophe was silently spreading throughout the lower dimension world. The dimensional vortex created by the malice spirit soon spread to the Do Domain world. 1 second, everyone was unaware. The next, the entire Do Domain world turned to dust. Xiao still had no idea what the people in the Do Domain world felt at that time. Damn it! Can't do anything? Suddenly, Xiao hand surged with power. Perhaps out of his unwillingness and anger, he crushed a stone beside him. Then, despite his excruciating pain, Xiao slowly stood up, each movement feeling like thousands of needles were piercing through his body. But he finally stood up. Now this looks like the Xiao I used to know. You didn't disappoint us after all. Looking at Xiao standing, the Spirit of Fire Flame smiled faintly, then took a step forward. At the same time, an overwhelming force enveloped the area, covering several billion miles of the boundless fire domain. What are you going to do? Protect this domain for us?